The great hall was silent. Thousands of alien beings sat in rows that stretched up toward the ceiling. Their eyes, some with 2, some with 6, some with none at all focused on the center stage. This was the Galactic Council Chamber, the place where the most important decisions in the galaxy were made. Captain Daewon Kim stood at the back of the human section. His dark uniform was covered with medals, but his face showed no pride. Only worry. Next to him, Ambassador Ji-won Park sat with perfect posture. Her hands were folded on the table in front of her. She looked calm, but Daewon knew her well enough to see the tension in her shoulders. On the other side of the chamber, Commander Thalric stood tall. He was not human. His body looked like a giant insect, covered in shining black armor that was part of his skin. 4 arms crossed over his chest. His face had no expression that humans could read, but his voice was clear and strong. "I call this council to witness," Thalric began. His voice echoed through the chamber. "Humanity seeks to join our peaceful alliance. But I say they are not ready. They are not safe. They are violent creatures who have spent 10,000 years killing each other." A hologram appeared above the stage. It showed Earth, the blue and green planet where humans came from. Then the image changed. Daewon watched as scenes from human history played out for everyone to see. Armies marching, cities burning, weapons exploding. The images moved through time, showing war after war after war. The aliens in the chamber made sounds of shock and fear. Some covered their eyes. Others turned away. They had never seen such violence before. "Look at this," Thalric said, pointing at the hologram. "This is what they call World War I. 20 million dead. And did they learn? No, 20 years later they started World War II. 60 million more dead." The images kept coming. Nuclear explosions, battleships sinking, fighter jets burning in the sky. Then newer images appeared. The Mars Rebellion, the asteroid belt conflicts. Even in space, humans had continued to fight. They brought their wars with them to the stars, Thalric continued. Every place they go, violence follows. And now they want to bring that violence here to our peaceful galaxy. Daewon felt his jaw tighten. His hands formed fists. Young Lieutenant Hyunwoo Choi, who sat behind him, leaned forward and whispered, "Sir, is he allowed to say these things?" "Yes," Daewon whispered back. "This is a trial. He can say whatever he wants." At the highest seat in the chamber sat High Arbiter Velmora. She was ancient, her reptilian skin covered in scales that had turned silver with age. Her eyes were wise and patient. She watched everything without speaking. Thalric was not finished. "The Chithar Collective has been part of this council for 3,000 years. We have explored 10,000 star systems. We have met hundreds of species. And never, never have we encountered a species as brutal as humanity." More images appeared. These showed human soldiers in combat. Daewon saw himself in one image, much younger, covered in dust and blood. He was carrying a wounded soldier away from an explosion. The memory hit him hard. That had been on Mars during the rebellion. The soldier he was carrying was Sergeant Minji Lee. She had died in his arms 10 minutes after that image was taken. "They train their young to fight," Thalric said. "They build entire economies around weapons. They write songs about battles. They give medals to those who kill the most enemies. This is not a civilization. This is a plague." Ambassador Ji-won stood up slowly. Her voice was quiet but firm. "High Arbiter, I request the right to respond." Velmora nodded her great head. "The human representative may speak." Ji-won walked to the center stage. She stood next to the hologram, which still showed images of human wars. She did not try to turn it off. Instead, she looked at it for a long moment. "Commander Thalric is correct," she said. The chamber erupted in surprised sounds. "Everything he has shown you is true. We have fought wars, many wars. We have killed each other. We have destroyed cities and burned forests and poisoned oceans. We have done terrible things." Daewon was confused. What was Ji-won doing? Why was she agreeing with their accuser? Ji-won turned to face the council. "But Commander Thalric has not told you why. He has shown you what we did. He has not explained why we did it." She touched a control on her wrist. The hologram changed. Now it showed Earth again, but this time it focused on the planet itself. One small world. Limited water. Limited land. Limited resources. "We come from one planet," Ji-won said. "Only one. We could not leave when we ran out of space. We could not find new resources on another world. Everything we needed had to come from Earth, and there were so many of us. different groups, different beliefs, different needs, all trying to survive on one small planet. The hologram showed cities growing larger, populations increasing, resources becoming scarce. We fought because we had to, Jiwan continued, not because we wanted to. When two groups need the same land to grow food and there is not enough land for both, what happens? When two nations need the same water source and one nation takes it all, what happens? We fought because the alternative was to let our people starve. She paused and looked directly at Thalrix. Your people, Commander, come from a world with 3 times the resources of Earth. Your home planet has 2 moons and rich mineral deposits. You had space travel before you even invented weapons. You never had to compete for survival. Thalrix's insect-like body seemed to stiffen.
That does not excuse— I am not making excuses, Jiwan interrupted.
I am giving context. There is a difference. High Arbiter Velmora leaned forward. Her ancient voice was like stones grinding together. The Council will hear humanity's full defense. Ambassador Park, you will have time to present your case. Commander Thalrix, you will have time to respond. Then we will vote. Jiwan bowed her head. Thank you, High Arbiter. As she walked back to her seat, she passed close to Daewon. Without stopping, she whispered to him, Get ready. They're going to ask you to testify about Mars. Daewon felt his stomach tighten. Mars. The rebellion. The worst 6 months of his life. The place where he had learned what war really cost. The hologram faded away. The chamber began to buzz with quiet conversations. Aliens spoke to each other in dozens of different languages. Some looked at the humans with fear, others with curiosity, a few with something that might have been sympathy. Lieutenant Hyunwoo leaned close to Daewon. Sir, do you think we have a chance? They all seemed so shocked by the images. Daewon looked around the chamber. He saw beings from worlds where predators did not exist, from worlds where resources were unlimited, from worlds where different groups had never competed for survival. They had lived in peace not because they were better than humans, but because they had never faced the same challenges. I don't know, Daewon answered honestly, but we're about to find out if the galaxy is ready to understand us. High Arbiter Velmora struck a great bell with her staff. The sound rang through the chamber, calling everyone back to silence. This council session will resume in 1 solar cycle, she announced. The human delegation will prepare their defense. Commander Thalrix will prepare his counter-arguments. All evidence must be submitted to the council before the next session. The bell rang again and the session was over. For now, Daewon stood up and looked at the thousands of alien faces around him. Somewhere out there, humanity's fate was being decided. And he knew that what happened in this chamber would determine whether humans would be welcomed into the galaxy or turned away forever. The weight of that knowledge pressed down on him like gravity from a dying star. The next morning came quickly. Daewon had not slept well. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the images from the trial. More than that, he saw his own memories. The battles he had fought. The friends he had lost. He stood in the human delegation's quarters, looking out at the strange alien city beyond the window. Buildings made of crystal grew like trees. Flying vehicles moved silently through the air. Everything here was peaceful and clean. It was hard to believe that war existed at all in such a place. Captain Kim, a voice called from behind him. Daewon turned to see Dr. Sun Hee-yoon entering the room. She was older than him, with gray hair and kind eyes. She carried a data tablet under her arm. Dr. Yoon studied alien civilizations. She knew more about the species in the galaxy than almost anyone. Good morning, Doctor, Daewon said. Is it? She replied with a sad smile. After yesterday, I'm not sure anything is good. Ambassador Jiwan entered the room behind her. She looked tired but determined. We need to prepare for today's session. Daewon, they're going to ask you about your military service, specifically about Mars. Daewon nodded slowly. He had known this was coming. What do you want me to say? The truth, Jiwan answered. Just the truth. But I need you to help them understand why it happened, not just what happened. Lieutenant Hyunwoo came in carrying a tray of food. He set it down on the table. Sir, I've been reading the reports from the first session. The council members are scared. They've never seen anything like our history before. That's exactly right, Dr. Yoon said, activating her tablet. I've studied all 47 member species of the Galactic Council. Do you know what they have in common? None of them ever fought a war that lasted more than 3 months. None of them ever used weapons that could destroy entire cities. Most of them never had wars at all. She pulled up images on her tablet. They showed alien worlds, beautiful planets with clear skies and abundant resources. Look at this. The Serene Accord comes from a planet with perfect weather. No droughts. No famines. No reason to fight over resources. Another image appeared. The Chithar Collective, Thalrix's people. They evolved from hive insects. They think as groups, not individuals. The concept of two groups competing was foreign to them until they met other species. So they judge us for something they never experienced, Daewon said. Exactly, Dr. Yoon replied. They see our violence but not the necessity that created it. A chime sounded. It was time to return to the council chamber. The Great Hall was even more crowded than before. Word had spread across the galaxy about humanity's trial. Representatives from dozens of observer species had come to watch. The air hummed with tension and curiosity. Ambassador Jiwon took the center stage. High Arbiter, members of the council, thank you for allowing us to present our defense. High Arbiter Velmora nodded. Her ancient eyes watched carefully. Yesterday, Commander Thalrix showed you images of human wars, Jiwon began. Today I will show you what happened between those wars. A new hologram appeared. It showed humans building cities, creating art, writing music, developing medicine, scientists working in laboratories, teachers in classrooms, farmers growing food. While we fought wars, we also built civilizations, Jiwon said. We created philosophy and literature. We developed mathematics and physics. We learned to cure diseases and extend life. We did not spend all our time fighting. We spent most of our time living. The hologram showed more images. Humans helping each other after natural disasters. Humans exploring their planet. Humans looking up at the stars and dreaming. Yes, we fought wars, Jiwon continued. But we also made peace. After every war, we tried to learn. We created systems to prevent future conflicts. We built organizations to encourage cooperation. We did not always succeed, but we always tried. She paused and looked around the chamber. Dr. Sun-Hee Yoon, our expert on comparative civilizations, will explain further. Dr. Yoon stepped forward. She looked nervous but spoke clearly. I have studied every species in this council. I have learned something important. Species develop based on their environment. Your peaceful natures are not because you are morally superior. They are because you never faced the challenges that required you to develop weapons or warrior cultures. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some aliens looked offended. I mean no disrespect, Dr. Yoon quickly added. I am simply stating a fact. The Serene Accord never needed to fight because their planet provided everything. The Chithar Collective worked together naturally because of their hive instincts. You are peaceful because you could afford to be peaceful. She showed a graph on the hologram. Humans evolved on a planet with limited resources, dangerous predators, harsh weather, and geological instability. We had earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, and droughts. We had to compete for survival not just with each other, but with our own planet. The graph showed Earth's history, ice ages, mass extinctions, disasters that had wiped out entire species. We survived because we learned to adapt, Dr. Yoon said. We learned to make tools. We learned to work together in groups. And yes, we learned to fight. Because the groups that did not learn these things died out. High Arbiter Velmora spoke. Are you suggesting that violence is natural? That it cannot be changed? No, Dr. Yoon answered. I am suggesting that violence was necessary for our survival. But so was cooperation, so was creativity, so was compassion. We are not just warriors. We are survivors who learned that sometimes survival requires fighting, and sometimes it requires peace. Ambassador Jiwon stepped forward again. High Arbiter, with your permission, I would like to call Captain Daewon Kim to testify about his military experience. Velmora nodded. The council will hear him. Daewon's heart pounded as he walked to the center stage. Thousands of alien eyes watched him. He had faced enemy soldiers without fear. But standing here being judged by these peaceful beings was more frightening than any battle. Captain Kim, Jiwon said gently, please tell the council about the Mars Rebellion. Daewon took a deep breath. The Mars Rebellion happened 27 years ago. I was 23 years old. Mars had been colonized for 50 years, but the people there felt that Earth was treating them unfairly. They wanted independence. The hologram showed Mars, the red planet with its domed cities and underground tunnels. Earth refused. Daewon continued. Both sides prepared for war. I was a young lieutenant then. I believed I was fighting for unity, for keeping humanity together. He paused, remembering. The war lasted 6 months. It was brutal. We fought in tunnels where you could not see the enemy until they were right in front of you. We fought in the thin atmosphere where a single hole in your suit meant death. We fought over water supplies and oxygen generators. His voice became quieter. I lost half my unit in those 6 months. My best friend, Sergeant Minji Lee, died in my arms after a tunnel collapsed. She asked me to tell her daughter that she loved her. Those were her last words. The chamber was completely silent. Even the aliens who could not understand human emotions seemed to sense the pain in his voice. We won the war, Daewon said. Earth kept control of Mars, but we lost so much. And for what? 5 years later, we gave Mars its independence anyway. All those deaths were for nothing. He looked up at the council. That is when I learned the real lesson of war. Not how to fight, not how to win, but how to recognize when fighting is unnecessary. How to see that peace, even an imperfect peace, is better than victory. Ambassador Ji-won spoke. Captain Kim represents millions of human soldiers who learned this same lesson. We do not celebrate war. We remember it so we never forget its cost. A voice called out from the other side of the chamber. It was Commander Thalrix. A touching story, Captain. But tell me, what happens now that you have no more enemies among your own kind? Where does your warrior nature turn? Daewon met the insect commander's gaze. We turn it toward protection. We learned to make war so we could also learn to prevent it. We became strong so we could defend the weak. Noble words, Thalrix said, his voice dripping with doubt. But I wonder if you truly mean them, or if you simply seek new enemies to fight. Before Daewon could answer, High Arbiter Velmora struck her bell. This session is adjourned. The council will reconvene tomorrow to hear Commander Thalrix's counter-testimony. As the chamber emptied, Daewon felt drained. He had opened old wounds today, but he knew it was necessary. The galaxy needed to understand humanity, not just fear it. That evening, Lieutenant Hyunwoo could not stop working. While others rested, he sat in front of his computer terminal searching through data files. Something about Commander Thalrix bothered him. The way the insect commander had accused humans so confidently. The way he spoke of peace as if his species had never done anything wrong. Hyunwoo was young, only 25 years old, but he was thorough. He had learned from Captain Daewon that details mattered. Small pieces of information could change everything. He was searching through Galactic Council records when something caught his eye. A file marked as classified. It was about a Chithar military operation from 10 years ago. The file was locked, but Hyunwoo had learned some tricks from human intelligence officers. After an hour of careful work, he managed to open it. What he read made his blood run cold. Captain Kim. Hyunwoo ran through the corridors of their quarters. Captain Kim, you need to see this. Daewon emerged from his room, still half asleep. What is it? Thalrix, Hyunwoo said, breathing hard. He's not what he claims to be. Ambassador Ji-won appeared from her own room, wrapped in a nightrobe. Explain, Lieutenant. Hyunwoo pulled up the files on a wall screen. 10 years ago, there was a colony called Vex 7. It was a Chithar settlement, but the colonists wanted independence from the Chithar collective. They wanted to govern themselves. That sounds familiar, Daewon said, thinking of Mars. The collective sent military forces to restore order, Hyunwoo continued. Commander Thalrix led that mission. According to the official report, the colonists were peacefully convinced to remain part of the collective. But that's not what really happened, Ji-won guessed. No, Hyunwoo said grimly. He pulled up another file. I found a hidden report. The colonists refused to surrender. They defended themselves with mining equipment and tools. Thalrix declared them rebels and ordered a complete military response. The colony was destroyed. Everyone in it died. Daewon stared at the screen. How many? 40,000. The number hung in the air like poison. Ji-won's face went pale. And the council knows about this? They must, Hyunwoo said. But it was classified as a peacekeeping operation. The official story is that the colonists accidentally destroyed their own life support systems. Only a few people know the truth. We need more evidence, Ji-won said. We need someone who was there. Hyunwoo smiled slightly. I found someone. One of the colonists survived. His name is Threnkor. He escaped before the final attack. He's been living in hiding for 10 years, but I managed to send him a message. He agreed to testify. Daewon clapped the young lieutenant on the shoulder. Good work. But someone else had been listening. Dr. Sun Hee-yoon stood in the doorway. Behind her was another woman, younger, with sharp eyes. We found something too, Dr. Yoon said. The younger woman stepped forward. My name is Young-Mi Kwan. I'm a data analyst. I've been studying Galactic Council historical records. She activated her own tablet and a timeline appeared on the wall screen. It showed thousands of years of galactic history. I found something disturbing. The Council species have been peaceful for thousands of years, but not because they chose peace, because they were never threatened. The timeline highlighted several events. 800 years ago, something attacked the galaxy from outside. They called it the Devourers, massive ships that consumed entire planets for resources. They attacked 3 Council species. What happened? Daewon asked. The Council species had no weapons, Young-Mi explained. No military, no defenses. They tried to negotiate, but the Devourers did not communicate. They only consumed. The Council lost hundreds of worlds before the Devourers suddenly left. Why did they leave? Ji-won asked. Nobody knows, Young-Mi said. They just disappeared back into deep space. But here's the important part. The Council never prepared for them to return. They were so traumatized by violence that they refused to even discuss military defense. They chose to forget rather than prepare. Dr. Yoon added, the Council has been living in a peaceful bubble for 800 years. They've convinced themselves that violence does not exist in their galaxy. When they see humans, they see a reminder of the Devourers. They see the violence they tried to forget. Daewon understood now. They're not judging us because we're violent. They're judging us because we make them remember their own trauma. Exactly, Dr. Yoon said. The next morning they returned to the Council chamber, but this time they had new information. Ambassador Ji-won requested an emergency session before the regular proceedings. High Arbiter Velmora looked surprised, but allowed it. The human delegation may speak. Ji-won stepped forward. High Arbiter, we have discovered information relevant to this trial. We request permission to present new evidence and call a witness. Commander Thalrix's insect body tensed. What kind of evidence? Evidence about you, Commander, Ji-won said calmly. The chamber erupted in shocked sounds. Aliens turned to each other, speaking in rapid whispers. High Arbiter Velmora struck her bell. Order! Ambassador Park, explain yourself. 10 years ago, there was an incident at Colony Vex 7, Ji-won said. A Chithar colony that wanted independence. Commander Thalrix led the military operation to stop them. The official report says the colonists were peacefully convinced to remain part of the collective. But we have found evidence that tells a different story. Thalrix stood up. That operation was classified. How did you access? The classification is not important, Ji-won interrupted. The truth is important. High Arbiter, we have a survivor from Vex 7 who wishes to testify. Velmora was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. The Council will hear this witness. A hologram flickered to life. It showed a Chithar male looking much like Thalrix but older and scarred. His voice was shaking but clear. My name is Threnkor. I am the last survivor of Colony Vex 7. Every eye in the chamber focused on the hologram. Threnkor continued. We were a peaceful colony. We grew food. We raised families. We wanted only to govern ourselves. When the collective refused, we decided to declare independence anyway. That is rebellion, Thalrix said coldly. You violated collective law. We violated an unjust law, Threnkor replied. And for that, you decided we all deserved to die. The hologram changed to show images from Vex 7. Daewon watched as the peaceful colony was shown first. Then images of Chithar military ships arriving, then destruction. Commander Thalrix gave us one chance to surrender, Threnkor said. When we refused, he ordered the destruction of our life support systems. He said it would be quick, a merciful end to rebellion. They were armed, Thalrix protested. They attacked my forces. We defended ourselves with mining tools, Threnkor said. Because you gave us no choice. Surrender or die. Those were our only options. You could have chosen surrender, Thalrix said. Like you want humans to surrender now? Threnkor asked. Commander Thalrix, you stand here judging humans for their wars. But you committed the same violence you accused them of. The only difference is that humans admit what they did. You hide it behind words like peacekeeping and necessary intervention. The chamber was in chaos now. Aliens were shouting at each other. Some demanded answers from Thalrix. Others called for order. High Arbiter Velmora struck her bell again and again until silence returned. She looked at Thalrix. Commander, do you deny these accusations? Thalrix was silent for a long moment. The operation at Vex 7 was necessary to maintain order in the collective. The colonists were warned. They chose their fate. 40,000 people, G1 said quietly. 40,000 of your own species. Because they wanted freedom. She turned to face the council. Commander Thalrix has spent this trial telling you that humans are too violent to join your peaceful galaxy. But what is the difference between us? We fought wars, yes, but we admit them. We study them. We learn from them. We teach our children about the horrors of war so they will seek peace. She pointed at Thalrix. The commander committed an act of violence equal to any human war. But he calls it peacekeeping. He hides it in classified files. He pretends it never happened. That is not peace. That is denial. Dr. Yoon stepped forward. I have more evidence to present. About the Devourers. About why this council truly fears humanity. Young Mi Quan activated her data, and the timeline appeared again. The attacks from 800 years ago. The world's lost. The council's trauma. You do not fear human violence because it is unique, Dr. Yoon said. You fear it because it reminds you of your own vulnerability. 800 years ago you were attacked. You had no defenses. You lost millions of lives. And then the threat disappeared and you chose to forget rather than prepare. She looked around the chamber. That is why you judge humans so harshly. Not because we are violent, but because we represent the truth you do not want to face, that peace is not permanent, that threats can come from nowhere, that sometimes survival requires the ability to fight. High Arbiter Velmora stood up slowly. Her ancient voice filled the chamber. This session is adjourned. The council requires time to consider these revelations. We will reconvene in 2 days. As the chamber emptied, Daewon saw Commander Thalrix standing alone. The insect commander looked smaller now. His confidence was gone. He had come here to judge humanity, but instead his own actions had been exposed. Lieutenant Hyun-woo approached Daewon. The 2-day recess felt like 2 years. Daewon spent most of his time walking through the alien city, trying to clear his mind. The streets were beautiful and strange. Buildings grew from the ground like living things. The aliens who lived here moved peacefully, without fear or anger. It was everything Earth was not. And yet, Daewon could not help but feel that something was missing from this perfect place. It was too clean, too safe, like a garden that had never known storms. On the second day, a message came. It was from an unexpected source. Commander Thalrix wanted to meet with Daewon privately. Ambassador Ji-won did not like the idea. It could be a trap. He might try to intimidate you. But Daewon was curious. I'll meet him, in a public place, with Hyun-woo watching from a distance. They met in a garden near the council building. Thalrix stood by a fountain, his insect body perfectly still. When he saw Daewon approach, he turned to face him. Captain Kim, Thalrix said. His voice was different now. Quieter. Thank you for coming. What do you want, Commander? Daewon asked directly. Thalrix was silent for a moment, then he said, I wanted to explain, about Vex 7. I'm listening. The colonists were my people, Thalrix said. When they declared independence, the collective leaders ordered me to bring them back. I tried to negotiate. For 3 months I tried, but they refused every offer. He turned away from Daewon. When the leaders ordered military action, I followed my orders. I told myself it was necessary, that a few deaths now would prevent a larger conflict later, that I was protecting the unity of our species. And now? Daewon asked. Now I wonder if I simply lacked the courage to disobey. Thalrix said. I wonder if I hid my fear behind duty. Daewon stood next to him by the fountain. I understand that feeling. On Mars, I followed orders too. I did things I'm not proud of. I told myself I was doing my duty. But after Minji died in my arms, I realized something. Duty is not an excuse. It's a choice. We choose to follow orders. We choose to pull the trigger. We cannot hide behind the uniform. How do you live with it? Thalrix asked. I remember, Daewon said. I remember every face, every name. I teach young soldiers about the cost of war. I work to prevent conflicts before they start. I cannot change the past, but I can try to make the future better. Thalrix nodded slowly. I judged your species harshly because I saw in you what I feared in myself. The capacity for violence. The willingness to do terrible things for what we believe is right. We're not that different, Daewon said. No, Thalrix agreed. We are not. The next day the council reconvened, but something had changed. The atmosphere in the chamber felt different, less hostile, more uncertain. High Arbiter Velmora called the session to order. Before we continue, another witness has requested to speak, Captain Insu Bayek of the human military. Daewon was surprised. Insu Bayek was a legend among human soldiers. He had fought in 7 major conflicts and survived them all. But after the last war, he had retired from military service and become a teacher. He taught philosophy and peace studies at the military academy. Insu walked to the center stage. He was older than Daewon, perhaps 60 years old. His face was marked with scars, but his eyes were gentle and wise. Members of the council, Insu began, I have spent 40 years as a soldier and 10 years as a teacher of peace. I have killed enemies and saved allies. I have seen the worst of humanity and the best of humanity. I would like to tell you what I have learned. The chamber was quiet. Even Thalrix seemed interested in what this old soldier would say. War is a teacher, Insu said. It is a harsh teacher, a terrible teacher, but it teaches lessons that cannot be learned in any other way. It teaches us the value of life by showing us how easily it can be lost. It teaches us the price of peace by showing us the cost of conflict. It teaches us the importance of wisdom by showing us the consequences of foolishness. He walked slowly as he spoke. I do not celebrate war. I do not recommend it. If I could erase every battle I fought from history, I would. But I cannot. Those battles happened. They shaped me. They shaped my species. A hologram appeared showing human philosophers and peace activists throughout history. Many of them were former soldiers. The greatest advocates for peace in human history were often those who had experienced war, Insu said, because they understood what was at stake. They had seen the alternative, they had paid the price, and they decided that price was too high. He paused and looked around the chamber. You judge us for our violent history. But I ask you this. If you had never experienced violence, how can you truly value peace? If you have never lost anything, how can you appreciate what you have? Professor Haewon Song stepped forward next. She was an expert in game theory and conflict resolution. She had spent her career studying why wars start and how to prevent them. I have a simulation I would like to share with the council, she said. A complex mathematical model appeared in the hologram. This shows the long-term stability of civilizations based on their historical experience with conflict. The model ran through hundreds of scenarios. Civilizations that have never experienced conflict are extremely fragile. When faced with an unexpected threat, they have no framework for response. They panic. They make poor decisions. They often collapse entirely. She showed another set of data. Civilizations that have experienced and survived conflicts develop resilience. They create systems for managing disagreements. They build institutions to prevent war while maintaining the capacity for defense. They are much more stable in the long term. Are you saying war is good? An alien representative asked, sounding shocked. No, Professor Haewon replied. I am saying that the experience of conflict, when survived and learned from, makes civilizations stronger and more stable. War itself is terrible, but learning from war is valuable. Ambassador Jiwon took the stage again. High Arbiter, members of the Council, we have one more revelation to share. Admiral Bo-Ra Shin of the human fleet will explain. A hologram of Admiral Shin appeared. She was a stern-looking woman with gray hair and a uniform covered in medals. For the past 5 years, humanity has been secretly helping Council member species develop defensive capabilities. The chamber erupted in shocked sounds. Aliens turned to each other in confusion and surprise. We knew this trial was coming, Admiral Shin continued. We knew you would judge us for our military history, but we also knew that the galaxy might need defenders someday, so we offered to help. Quietly, without seeking credit or recognition. The hologram showed images of human engineers working with alien scientists, mixed crews training together, defensive systems being installed on council worlds. "We helped the Serene Accord develop early warning systems," Admiral Shin said. "We helped the Chithar Collective upgrade their exploration ships with defensive shields. We helped a dozen other species create emergency response protocols. Not for invasion, not for conquest, for protection." She looked directly at the council. "Because that is what we learned from our wars. The strong should protect the weak. The experienced should teach the inexperienced. Those who know how to fight should use that knowledge to prevent fighting." Commander Thalric stood up. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. Daewon held his breath, wondering what the insect commander would say. "I owe this council an apology," Thalric said. His voice was steady but humble. "I accused humanity of being violent and dangerous. I claimed they would threaten our peaceful galaxy, but I was wrong." He gestured toward the humans. "I was wrong not about their capacity for violence. They do have that capacity. But I was wrong about what they would do with it. They chose to use their strength to help others. To protect, not to conquer." Thalrix turned to face Daewon. "I also owe Captain Kim a personal apology. I judged his species for the same actions I myself committed. I called them brutal while hiding my own brutality. That was cowardice." High Arbiter Velmora spoke. "Commander Thalrix, what are you saying?" "I am saying I withdraw my objection to humanity joining the Council," Thalrix said. "They have proven themselves worthy. Not despite their violent history, but because of how they responded to it. They learned. They grew. They chose to become protectors instead of predators." The chamber was filled with murmuring voices. Some aliens seemed pleased. Others still looked uncertain. But the mood had shifted. The trial was no longer about condemning humanity. It was about understanding them. Lieutenant Hyunwoo leaned close to Daewon. "Sir, I think we might actually win this." But before Daewon could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed. A mechanical voice spoke in multiple languages. "Emergency. All council members to defensive stations. This is not a drill." High Arbiter Velmora stood up quickly. "What is happening?" A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed deep space. And in that space, something was moving. Ships. Thousands of them. Huge vessels that looked like nothing in the Council's database. An old AI appeared on the hologram. Its voice was ancient and cold. "I am Sentinel Drovak, Guardian of the Galactic Rim. I bring urgent news. The Devourers have returned. They will reach Council space in 72 hours. The chamber exploded into panic. Panic filled the Council chamber like water rushing into a sinking ship. Aliens ran in every direction. Some screamed. Others stood frozen in fear. The orderly civilization that had judged humanity for its violence was now falling apart at the first sign of real danger. Daewon watched it all with a strange calm. This was not his first crisis. He had been trained for moments like this. He turned to Ambassador Jiwon. "We need to take control of this situation." Jiwon nodded. She walked to the center stage and shouted, "Everyone, please remain calm." But no one heard her over the noise. High Arbiter Velmora was trying to restore order, but even her ancient authority was not enough to stop the panic. Daewon looked at Lieutenant Hyunwoo. "Get Admiral Shin on emergency communications. Tell her we need a defense plan immediately." Then he walked to the hologram of Sentinel Drovak. The ancient AI watched the chaos without emotion. "Sentinel, can you show us the enemy fleet in detail?" The hologram changed. It showed the Devourer ships up close. They were massive, each one the size of a small moon. Their hulls looked organic, like they had grown rather than been built. Smaller ships swarmed around them like insects. "They will reach the outer colonies in 72 hours, Drovak said. "The inner worlds will fall within a week. The Council homeworlds will be reached in 2 weeks. "What are their capabilities?" Daewon asked. "Unknown," Drovak replied. 800 years ago, they consumed resources and ignored all attempts at communication. We assume they are the same." Commander Thalrix appeared beside Daewon. His insect body was tense but controlled. "Captain, the Chithar fleet is mostly exploratory vessels. We have no warships, no weapons designed for this scale of combat. Same for most council species, said a voice behind them. It was Envoy Cathran from the Serene Accord. The mammalian diplomat looked terrified. We have no military. We have no defenses. We are helpless. Daiwan turned to face them both. No, you're not helpless. You have humans. High Arbiter Velmora finally managed to restore some order. She struck her bell repeatedly until the chamber quieted. The council must respond. We need a defense strategy immediately. Ambassador Jiwan stepped forward. High Arbiter, humanity offers its assistance. We have military experience. We have defensive capabilities. We can organize a resistance. Can you stop them? Velmora asked directly. Jiwan was honest. I don't know, but we can try. An alien representative stood up. Daewon recognized him as a member of the Serene Accord. Why would you help us? We were about to judge you, to possibly reject your membership in the council. Daewon answered before Jiwan could. Because that's what we do. We protect those who need protection, even those who judge us. Admiral Shin's hologram appeared, larger now and clearer. Captain Kim is correct. The human fleet is already mobilizing. We've been monitoring the Devourers since they entered our sensor range 3 days ago. 3 days ago? Velmora said sharply. Why did you not tell the council immediately? Because we needed to be sure, Admiral Shin replied. And because we needed time to prepare. Time that would have been wasted on panic. She looked pointedly at the chaos that had just occurred. A new hologram appeared. It showed human ships moving into position. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. They were gathering at strategic points along the border of council space. We're not the only ones, Admiral Shin continued. Another set of ships appeared in the hologram. Commander Yunji Ryu is leading a joint task force. Human crews working with alien volunteers. We've been training together for 5 years, preparing for exactly this scenario. Commander Yunji's face appeared on screen. She was younger than Admiral Shin, perhaps 40 years old. Her expression was serious but confident. High Arbiter, we have 1,000 ships ready for defense. That's not enough to stop the Devourers entirely, but it's enough to slow them down and evacuate civilians from threatened worlds. Thalrix looked at the display in amazement. You prepared for this. While we debated and judged you, you were preparing to defend us. We learned from history, Daewon said simply. The Devourers came before. We knew they might come again. The Council chose to forget. We chose to prepare. High Arbiter Velmora looked at Ambassador Jiwan. What do you need from us? First, we need all available ships, even civilian vessels, to help with evacuation, Jiwan said. Second, we need access to all Council military assets, whatever they are. Third, we need authority to coordinate the defense. You want us to give you military command? An alien representative asked, shocked. No, Jiwan said. We want to work together, but someone needs to make quick decisions in combat. We have the experience to do that. Velmora did not hesitate. The Council grants humanity emergency military authority. All resources are at your disposal. Save our people, Captain Kim. Ambassador Park, show us that we were right to trust you. The next 72 hours were chaos, but organized chaos. Daewon barely slept. He worked with military leaders from a dozen species, coordinating evacuation routes and defense positions. Lieutenant Hyunwoo became invaluable, managing communications between human and alien forces. The young officer who had started this mission as a simple aide was now coordinating an entire defensive network. Dr. Sun Hee-yoon worked with alien scientists, studying the old records of the Devourer attacks. She was looking for any weakness, any pattern that might help. Professor Haewon Song used her game theory models to predict Devourer movements and suggest optimal defensive positions. And Captain Insu Bayek, the old soldier turned philosopher, taught rapid courses in military tactics to alien crews who had never fired a weapon in their lives. When the Devourers reached the outer colonies, the defense was ready. Human ships engaged first, hitting the enemy fleet with coordinated strikes. The Devourer ships were tough, but they were not invincible. Human weapons designed through thousands of years of warfare could hurt them. Behind the human ships came the mixed fleets. Alien vessels with human weapons installed. Mixed crews working together. They fought with courage, even though many of them had never seen combat before. Daewon commanded from the bridge of a human destroyer. Beside him stood Commander Thalrix, who had requested assignment to Daewon's ship. The insect commander was learning fast. His natural tactical thinking, combined with human combat experience, made him an effective officer. Enemy ships breaking through Sector 7, an operator called out. Send reinforcements, Daewon ordered, and evacuate the civilian population from the planets in their path. The battle lasted 3 days. It was brutal. Many ships were lost. Many lives were sacrificed. But the Devourers were stopped. Not destroyed, that would take more time and resources. But stopped. Held at the border of Council space while civilians were evacuated. On the 3rd day, the Devourer fleet suddenly changed direction. They turned away from Council space and headed back toward deep space. Just as they had done 800 years ago, they left without explanation. Daewon stood on the bridge, watching them go. Thalric stood beside him. Why did they leave? I don't know, Daewon said. Maybe they found easier targets elsewhere. Maybe they don't like sustained resistance. We'll need to study them more to understand. But they'll come back, Thalric said. Probably, Daewon agreed. That's why we need to stay ready. A week later, the council reconvened. The chamber looked different now. Alien representatives who had been terrified were now thoughtful. They had seen what defense looked like. They had seen what cooperation could achieve. High Arbiter Velmora called for the final vote. The question before this council is whether humanity should be accepted as a full member. After all we have witnessed, all we have learned, it is time to decide. The vote was unanimous. Every species voted to accept humanity, but Velmora was not finished. Furthermore, the Council recognizes that our peaceful galaxy was peaceful only because we were never truly threatened. Humanity has taught us that peace must be defended. Therefore, the Council establishes a new military branch, led jointly by human and Council representatives. We will learn from humanity. We will prepare for future threats. We will never again be caught helpless. Ambassador Jiwan stood to accept the decision. Humanity is honored to join the Galactic Council. We promise to share our knowledge. But more importantly, we promise to share our most valuable lesson, that the goal of military strength is not war, but the prevention of war. We became strong so that others would not need to. After the session ended, Daewon found himself back in the garden where he had met with Thalrix. The insect commander joined him there. I was wrong about your species, Thalrix said, not about your capacity for violence. That is real. But I was wrong about what it means. We were never ashamed of our wars, Daewon said. We were ashamed that they were necessary. But we learned from them. That's the difference, Thalrix nodded. I am learning too. About defense. About sacrifice. About courage. Things my people forgot we needed to know. They stood together in silence for a moment. Then Thalrix asked, What will you do now, Captain? Daewon smiled slightly. What I've always done. Train the next generation, teach them about war so they can preserve peace, help build defenses so that hopefully they'll never be needed. That sounds like wisdom, Thalrix said. That's what war taught us. Daewon replied, The best victory is the battle you never have to fight.